Being able to move and work freely across all the EU states is a fundamental right for EU citizens from all 27 member states. But although in theory the lights are green for go, the reality doesn't always match up, and EU citizens sometimes don't understand their rights in their host countries. The Netherlands opened its doors to workers from Central and Eastern European member states in 2007, 3 years after the enlargement of the EU. At this paprika farm, almost all the workers are Polish, like Martyna.
I want to study German to make the master, the 2 years, but not study every day, but only in the weekend. In Poland, this is expensive for normal people, they're not very rich. And I make a break and I work and become money.
Here in the Netherlands, agriculture is one of the sectors which recruits most Eastern European workers. As citizens of the EU, Polish people don't need work permits, just a passport or a simple identity card. 350,000 Eastern Europeans currently live in the Netherlands. And during the economic crisis, the risk of discrimination has risen. The tone and content of Geert Wilders' website is a good example of this. The VVD, or People's Party for Freedom and Democracy, is a xenophobic anti-European far-right organisation which accuses EU workers from Central and Eastern Europe of stealing jobs from the Dutch. Rombout is the director of a company which recruits East European workers. According to him, this is nonsense.
I'm sure when the statistics show out, already those statistics are there, it will look that they are not replacing Dutch people from their workplace. It's totally another issue. It's just the other way around. When those Polish people are walking away out of Holland tomorrow, then the Dutch economy has a big problem. Who is going to do the job then?
Migration within Europe can be multifaceted. Most people manage very well, but others run into huge difficulties. In Heindoven, one information centre tries to help. The director, Sonja Driesson, has also founded an association, Migrada, to defend their rights.
Most migrants who come into the Netherlands don't speak Dutch, so that's a really big issue. But the other thing is information. Often migrants do not know what their rights are, but also not what their obligations are.
If you pay social security contributions in one country, what happens when you move?
He worked for 5 years almost in Germany, and he worked for 8 months in Germany, and then they couldn't find work in Germany anymore, and they went through Luxembourg to the Netherlands, and now they are homeless. They don't have a right on social security because they are new in the Netherlands, but they paid for social security 5 years and 8 months.
The situation is particularly difficult for Romanians and Bulgarians, the most recent additions to the EU. 9 member states, including the Netherlands, still apply work restrictions to these citizens in the form of work permits.
Company applies for a working permit. On the working permit is the name of the migrant. But at that moment, the work stops. The migrant cannot go to another company because the working permit is given to the company. And that is a thing that makes a migrant very vulnerable. And that's why he can't stand up very easy and say, okay, I don't want to work 80 hours a week. Because then he can lose his job.
Sonja feels it's essential to break down prejudice.
We want people to realize that migrants are people like you and me. And if you realize that, then you can change things. And if you look in a positive way at the migrant issues within Europe, I'm really convinced that we'll have a better situation. But it will take some time.
12 million Europeans currently live in other countries within the EU, which is only 2.5% of the total population of the EU. Even the best informed and qualified citizens trip over administrative barriers in their host countries. Understanding rights relating to social security, health insurance, registering a car, getting residency for a non-EU spouse, these issues still aren't easy for people who move within the EU. In Brussels, the ECAS organisation, with support from the European Commission, gives advice and information on the rights of EU citizens.
The officials people deal with or who answer people's questions aren't specially trained and don't necessarily always know the answers. They aren't up to date on the rights of citizens when it comes to EU mobility.
Claire answers questions from all over Europe and thinks that member states are putting up increasing numbers of barriers for EU migrants.
I think the barriers are getting larger, that the problems linked to getting social security in particular are increasingly complex. I think member states are closing in on themselves and creating lots of administrative problems in order to limit access by nationals from other member states. There's no appetite for facilitating mobility. Anyway, that's the feeling you get when you see the questions we receive here.
The intransigence and incomprehension of the Belgian authorities has created problems for this family living in Brussels. Parents of one child, David Abiago and his wife, are fighting to be able to give their second child the same name when he or she is born in June. The father has Belgian and British nationality and the mother is Spanish.
We have 3 different nationalities, so our child is also Spanish. And in Spain they have 2 surnames. They have the father's surname and the mother's surname. And that's our problem. There's a Belgian law, it's a Napoleonic law, and it's still there influencing Belgian law, which basically says that the child must have the father's surname, and there are no exceptions to that.
The ultimate solution would be to get a royal decree so that their child could have the same name on his or her Spanish and Belgian passports.
The European Court of Justice seems to have been fairly clear on it. It's ridiculous and it's a discrimination to give the same child different surnames in different EU countries. That's a restriction on your right of free movement. How do you prove that you're the one and the same person if you have passports with different names?
So there's still a long road to travel before EU citizens can really work and travel freely across the whole Union.